what's up you guys, The Curious Owl here, and today I'm going to be discussing my worst rated books for 2018. So thankfully 2018 was actually a really good reading year. I had so many great books that I think totally overrode all of the books that I didn't like this year, but there were some I really did not like for one reason or another. So this is going to be my books that were 2 stars and under, and I didn't have my first 2-star read until February, and that was the audiobook for Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I have a whole review of this about why I didn't like it, but to kind of sum it up, basically, I hated this entire story for the most part. I thought that, it was okay for the time period, but putting it in a modern standpoint, Heathcliff was an abusive asshole. He was mentally and emotionally abusive to Catherine, and while he may have been bullied for much of his life because of Catherine's older brother, it gave him no excuse to treat Catherine in the way he did, because I felt like he just complained and whined all the time about how she didn't love him when it was pretty clear she was never going to marry him, because of the fact that she knew it was not going to be something that her father would approve of. And granted, the fact that she was more concerned about her image than anything also was not great. But, that was her decision. She made her decision, and she should have lived with it. And I didn't like it. I thought it was really stupid, and I just don't see why this was such a classic for most people. I also will include my DNFs for this year, and the first one was in April. I had a pretty good stretch of time between books I didn't like, but I ended up DNFing The Maze Runner by James Dashner, the third and final installment, I think, to the Maze Runner trilogy. And this was mainly because at the time that I was reading this, I found out that James Dashner was a sexual assaulter, and I no longer wanted to support his work. And at the same time, it was kind of coincidental because the book itself was kind of boring. I didn't really see much of a point. I was really only getting through the Maze Runner series at this point because I liked the first 2 books, but having looked back on them, by the time I got to this one, they weren't really that good. And I don't know why I liked them so much at the time. I think it was because I really wanted to be, in the popular opinion of the books, but especially since I found out that James Dashner is a sexual assaulter, I wanted no part of him. The next book I did not like and ended up DNFing was Insomnia by Stephen King. This didn't happen until July. Insomnia was just so hard to even figure out what the hell was going on. I had a whole video talking about this thing with Insomnia because it was supposed to be like, I guess, a kind of companion novel to the Dark Tower series in a way, because I found that out not too long ago, and it deals also with some things I think that were discussed in the Hearts and Atlantis stories by Stephen King. There was just so much going on with it. I didn't even quite understand what exactly to pick from, because you had your main character who was slowly losing the ability to sleep, and it was because of something that happened to him that he kind of developed this. He lost his wife to cancer, and then not long after that he starts losing all his sleep. There's something about this whole anti-abortion thing going on. Then one of his friends starts losing sleep as well, but it doesn't physically affect them. They just can't actually sleep anymore. Then there was this guy who was married who was abusing his wife that was a friend of the main character. That it's just there was so much going on. I didn't know what to fucking focus on for any particular moment in time. I got through 500 pages of it out of the 800 there was, and I was only getting through it just to get through it, and I finally decided, you know what, I don't know what the hell's going on here. I'm done with it. I can't figure out a goddamn thing of what this story is supposed to be about, what it is supposed to focus on. I couldn't do it. The next book that I didn't really like was The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Anne Brashares, the first book, and I remember really ranting and raving about this book when I reviewed it, because the book does not age well by any means. There are some things that I think were really glossed over, especially the fact that I think one of the characters was possibly raped. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like it was either she was raped or she regretted having sex with this one character, which I was not okay with. I felt like it was very much glossed over, and there was no real reaction from the main character about what happened. If there was any reaction, it was very minuscule. It wasn't really talked about very often after the fact. And there also was a character who had cancer that I think was mostly used for kind of an emotional grab, as opposed to there being an actual point to her having cancer. And I don't know. I think that the cancer was in there just to say that there was a character that had cancer, to get the reader to get more emotionally involved in the story, which I didn't care for. I didn't like it. I have the whole series. I don't know how it could have been a full-fledged series, but I'm gonna see. And I know, though, if I don't like the second book, I'm probably not going to read the rest of it, and I'm going to get rid of them. The next book I did not like was in August, and that was The Help by Kathryn Stockett. Now, I actually at first really did like this book. Then I was doing some research and found out that Kathryn Stockett pretty much made this shit up. She said that basically she had a maid growing up that, you know, she really liked a lot and stuff, and she wrote this story thinking about what could it have been like for these African American women taking care of white families. You can't do that. As a writer, you cannot place yourself in that position unless you've done your research, unless you've done, you know, extensive interviews with individuals. Then you should be able to write it, and then you should credit those people that you know, talked to and you took information from and those things. Kathryn Stockett did none of that. She basically just said, you know what, I'm going to write a story about an African-American woman and think of what could have possibly happened to her in that situation. Now, granted, the history of, you know, African-American treatment in the 60s was fairly common. You know, we all know most of what happened. I was not comfortable with the fact that she just wrote something to write something. And there having been very little research having done about anything regarding how these women felt. Well, and actually that was the last book that I didn't like. So pretty much the rest of the year I had 3 stars and up, which was great. I didn't expect it to end there, but yeah, so those are all the books that I didn't really like this year. Either I DNF'd them or they were 2 stars or lower. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. Let me know if any of these books I've talked about are books that you actually liked, or if they were also books you didn't care for, and what were some other books that you read this year that you really didn't care for. I would love to know and hear your opinions, so let me know. And as always, thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit the button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys!